Hello, everybody. Hi, hello. I'm back. But yes, greetings, everybody. It is me, the Skelly of Ace. And today is more art. Indeed. It is October 19th for me. I was going to take my extended release Adderall, but I only have like 4 of them. So I think I'm just gonna have a quick release Adderall. Because I still have a bunch of it. And next week I'm gonna have to start Vyvanse. Because my doctor switched me from Adderall to Vyvanse because of my snacking. Alright, Adderall has been consumed. But anyway, allow me to explain what I am and what I'm doing. So, I'm Skelly, otherwise known as Skelly Ace, Skell, or Cheese, or the Cheese Gremlin. And I am creating my own novel called Passionless Revenge, and I'm about halfway through writing the actual story itself, in terms of like the outlines and stuff. But the big thing is that it's going to have a lot of drawings. And that means I have to make a bunch of concept art. So I'm going to go into my folder. The reference sheets is the one I'm going to. So this is the main canvas for the Crystal Anatomy that I have. But I also have this one, which says divider. But anyway, to explain what Krista are, Krista is basically just me matching the words crystal and dragon together and using a K instead of a C. But they're an original species who come from a floating island, and they are based off of East Asian and European dragons. There are 2 types of them. They are called East and West. And essentially, they're like subtypes of the same species. They are different from the Hoop Volk, who kind of like have this sort of anatomy. And Krystra are like pretty different. Like even their blood is a different color. Their blood is kind of like opalescent. But anyway, the main thing I'm doing here is this is to kind of like explain some of the anatomy of the Krystra. Right now there are two Krystra characters that I have designed in the story. This one is the younger version of one of the characters who is Hydrangea. And then there is Osmanthus. And I'm fully aware that I'm probably gonna need to make a full-on, like, 3D model for her horn specifically, because they are very hard to draw. But yeah, I'm actually gonna go into this rough sheet, put it into subview. And I'm gonna put this in this folder. And I'm gonna start off with a kind of like gesture. And I'd like to mention that I believe I based this off of like the flag for Wales. Like for the tail. If I'm remembering it correctly. I might need to make like some 3D renders for like some of the traits and upload them to the Clip Studio Paint asset thingy. But this is what what the tail of a Western Krystra would look like. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna see if I can find the image that I based the tail off of. Because I know when I first designed Hydrangea's Krystra form, I took a reference. Yep. It's the flag of Wales all along. mean, I just imagine someone who is Welsh, like either playing the game or reading the book in whatever form they decide to read it, like whether it's, you know, an ebook or a traditional book, if I'm even able to get it traditionally published. And they see Hydrangea's tail, and they're like, wait a minute, this looks like the tail on the dragon on my country's flag. And then they like go to Blue Sky or whatever, or like on my Tumblr, and they ask me, hey, I noticed Hydrangea's tail has like a very specific shape that's like the flag for the country of Wales. Did you do this on purpose? And I'm going to say yes, I did this on purpose because this was one of the few references for dragons that I could find that I knew wouldn't be a slop. And also because the Welsh flag, in my opinion, is pretty cool looking. And it's pretty much all because of the dragon. Thank you, Wales, for having a cool dragon on the flag that represents your country. But yeah. Also, the reason I'm kind of like doing this is to like add a bit of realism, because usually it wouldn't be like just a circle. Just sticking into the body, that would be unrealistic. There would be some muscle. Like, you know, there would be a bit of muscle being connected to the tail. Also because I think I saw a reference, saw someone who did that on Blue Sky. And I was just like, actually, I'm going to apply this to my own art. Because a bunch of characters, I have a bunch of OCs who have tails. And this includes my own VTuber model. You can even see my big stupid tail. Right now. It wags all over the place. Whenever I move my head, it moves faster. But usually kind of like just ways like that. But this is kind of like I feel like the West Krista tail would probably be like it would probably have like some kind of fur on it. And the only justification I have for that is because if you have scales, you don't do well in the cold. You gotta have fur or some kind of hair. And just, I have a tendency to draw my characters with very voluminous hair. As you can see with Hydrangea over here. Look at that big stupid ponytail. Well, it's not even like a full ponytail, it's like a half updo. And a small message for anyone who wants to cosplay any of my characters. you don't have to spend a lot of resources like making the hair like as fluffy and voluminous as it is in my art. That is just an art style thing that I do because I like drawing hair. It's one of my favorite things to draw. Especially when I add a little bit of curl to it. If you aren't able to like get the volume represented in my style, then just do the best that you can. With, you know, making the cosplay within your abilities. Because I know, like, for the horn is like, one tip I have heard of, where it's like you have, like, a hair clip with a strong magnet. And then you put the head accessory, or in this case, the horn. You put a magnet on it and make sure it's, you know, opposite polarity, I think, of, like, the opposite side of the magnet to make sure that they don't, like, repel each other. And then you can just stick it on. Also, you can pretty much make I feel like you can make the horns a little bit hollow, just to make sure there's not a bunch of weight on top of your head that, you know, weighs you down, fun and shit. Just a small thing that I feel like would be a good piece of advice, like, to anyone who's willing to cosplay any of my characters, which is one of the highest honors I can receive as an artist, as a creator of stories and stuff. Like, I feel like having someone spend time and resources to make a cosplay of your own character is like one of the highest honors an artist can receive. I have yet to receive that honor, but I know that whenever it does happen, I'm probably gonna save it in like a special folder on my computer. Or like, if it's on Tumblr, make a special tag. Like for whenever I reblog someone who is cosplaying as one of my characters. Probably something like, I don't know. Probably like insert title of create of story here, cosplays. And then just a bunch of nonsense tags. Probably like a bunch of key smashes and metaphorical screaming. Because I don't know how I'd actually react to someone actually cosplaying one of my characters. Yeah, I definitely need to like some kind of like 3D model for the tail, add bones, and kind of like, because I have a base model for Osmi and Hydrangea. So I could probably like make a version of, like, make a 3D model of this. And, you know, also make sure to upload it to the Clip Studio Paint asset store so that people can use that for whatever needs they have. So one of the big things about the tails that I draw is that for the most part I almost always draw fluffy tails for my characters, but I feel like this is kind of a way to challenge myself. To like draw a different type of tail. Essentially, kind of like it would be good for me to like, and so like possibly my last stream before, like if I'm able to like if my family is able to go to that trip to Canada, because given some current things happening in the world that may lead to me possibly determining whether or not I need to do an emergency donathon or something. Like, depending on what happens, like, tomorrow. I may or may not need to start an emergency donathon so that my family can like still be able to like financially support our cats, especially the cats. That's like the important thing. Is, being able to support our cats. So depending on if they're able to like do the thing tomorrow, so I might not actually have to go to the point of doing an emergency donathon, but hopefully I will not have to. Anyway, these are the tails. Also, hello, Edith. So I think ads are starting pretty soon. Yeah, they're starting in like less than half a minute. So I'm gonna save my progress here. And then I'm going to kind of like just take a break from drawing and stuff until ads are over. And then I'm gonna go back to drawing. gonna text him when I choose. That's roll. So I do have a cat, but she is in the cubby. She's not like the most attention-seeking cat. She just likes being vaguely near me. Like, creepily watch me from under the door. Cause she's a little silly like that. Okay, so once that's finished, in a little bit, I'm going to start doing some of the line art. Because of course I need to do that. Because line art is kind of important. Because I can't just leave the entirety of the canvas in sketch jail. That would not be a good idea. Anyway, welcome back to Pads, everybody. So... I think I'm gonna change the color like a little bit. I'm gonna make this color, especially to make it contrast the colors I'm kind of using. But I'm going to use a Bezier curve. And it's just because I can do something like this. Also, hello, shadow. I just realized maybe not. Yes, hello, hi. I'm almost done with one of my classes. Which means, like, next week, so like, the week of Halloween, I'm gonna be finished with 2 of my classes. my health class and my English class. You chillin'? How am I? I'm quite well. I'm kind of like just drawing and stuff. I had a lab yesterday. And of course, because my brain tends to go burr, I finished both parts of our lab before my table mates were finished. So I left before they did. And when I was doing a quiz back on last Tuesday, I was like the first to like finish the assignment. And my professor is like, "You did that really fast." And I was just like, my brain goes fast. My brain goes zoom. Anyway, let's do a little bit of this. So this is the West Tail. And the reason why I kind of like did this is because it's like meant to represent muscles. Because I want to try and improve more of my anatomy. Especially since I'm going to be, publishing stuff. So great, yeah. I like to kind of joke that I am the CEO of, like, boob anatomy because of my skills with, like, being able to draw big bosoms. And that's pretty much just because I have a reference 24/7. Which is why I pretty much never really draw perky boobs. Like, I think I've gotten pretty good at, like, making the boobs, kind of, like, look good. And kind of, like, match with the, character. And stuff. Like, how's the story going? I actually haven't really been working on the actual story. If I'm going to be perfectly honest. Like, the most I really did was, like, do a little bit of, like, the ending for one of the chapters that I didn't work on previously. And I was going to work on it live during, Thanksgiving break next month. But apparently I am heading up to see my cousins, who are a very long distance away. So I can't really do that. But depending on current shutdown is going, I might be able to start working on my stream myself of writing my novel during the time I would be going to Canada because let's just say, for lack of better words, I mentioned this earlier, but tried to be kind of vague about it, but the US government shutdown means that my dad isn't being paid. And we have 2 months until Christmas. Luckily, we should have enough for like the rest of the year, but we might have to sacrifice the Canada trip. Which, to me, kind of sucks because honestly, I really wanted to go to Canada. Like, I honestly think that going to Canada would be kind of fun. But if, you know, the shutdown happens for long enough, my dad will continue to not get paid. And we'd probably have to, like, sacrifice it's going to Canada. Because we would no longer be able to afford going. We just start streaming more often again, yeah. This is the curve tool, not the Bezier curve. But yeah. Like, apparently the next time Congress is gonna meet is, like, tomorrow. And depending on how tomorrow goes, that's going to determine whether or not I start my emergency donathon. I already have incentives planned. And stuff. For, you know, the donathon. Hope it works out. Yeah, me too. Because if this ends up going for way longer than it should be, I might get a little pissed. Because that means I'm gonna have to dedicate some time to, like, doing stuff that I honestly would rather avoid doing, you know, at this time. Because I'd like to focus mainly on my education. this time? I can't really do that now, can I? And I might open my commissions at like reduced prices so that, you know, I can help with, you know, being able to like purchase stuff. At least for, you know, Christmas. I maybe like take 10-15% off my commission prices. Because, you know, I know I kind of have my commissions up pretty high. That, and I probably need to like make an image of like, you know, for what I can do with like the commissions and stuff. Because there are some things that I'm honestly not that willing to do, even if I'm like kind of desperate. So yeah. I just realized I probably need to like replace my tissue box. Because I forgot to before it went live. Because I spent like a very last minute restarted my computer because my Stream Deck was being wonky. Because of course it was being wonky just before I had to start stream. But honestly, I'm just glad that my computer hasn't like completely worked itself in a while. Like what happened like a few weeks ago. I was playing Tales of Berseria. Because I had to restart my computer several times in order for it to finally start reading my game drive again. Hopefully it was just a one-time thing, but I definitely lost some progress. In terms of like what I was doing. Because I don't know when I went to a safe spot before my computer like just imploded on itself for a little bit. But I hope I wasn't sent back too far. Cause that would kind of suck. But probably like I'm not actually fully sure. gonna redraw of this a little bit. You know, like, add a little more texture through line art. Yeah, right now one of the things that I'm kind of like doing, you know, for my classes is, you know, a personal finance presentation. Which is basically like, you gotta make a presentation about like future financial goals and stuff, and that involves like researching in taxes and how like the average pay you get for the career you plan on having. And like as I was doing some of it last week, like for like the monthly costs and budget stuff, I kind of just ended up being like, oh yeah, I definitely cannot afford to retire. Or like, oh, I definitely can't like have a rainy day budget with my career, or unless I like do stuff like, you know, outside of, you know, company time. Like, I basically went to the conclusion of, if I do ever live independently from my family, I'm probably gonna need a roommate or two just to afford stuff. But yeah. There we go. That has been done. I'm gonna briefly pop down some color. Over here. And in a little bit, I'm gonna start on my first intermission of the stream. Because I know that if I stream for too long, my attention span is gonna go whack. But yeah. So, this week I kind of have, like, a bunch of things I have to do. Like, for my classes, because 2 of them are ending. Luckily for one of them, I kind of just need to grab all of my worksheets, staple them together, and bring them to my professor on Tuesday. But for the other, I have to finish an essay, which I have like 3 paragraphs to go. And then I need to also finish a presentation, which is not the same one as the finance presentation. It's one for an argument. That's like my topic for my argumentative essays, which I think my finance presentation's due next week, like the same day that I have quiz due. Luckily, here's something I kind of know about, like, my ability to get stuff done is that as long as I have one, sticky notes that I can write stuff down on and place on the bottom of my monitor, 2, Adderall or some kind of other medication meant to help with ADHD, and 3, something to hydrate myself with so I don't get a migraine due to dehydration, and 4, some kind of a little snack so that I have some kind of like oral stimulant. I can do stuff quickly and efficiently. Even I fear my own power. But anyway, I'm actually gonna go start my break. Because I need to replace my tissue box. That's the most important thing. And then I need to like use the bathroom and stuff. So I'll be back in a few minutes. we're back. Hey, Bodinyang. So, I think I'm just gonna leave the tails as they are. And basically, I think something that I'm going to do is just my to-do list. But yeah. So, next week, after I do my stream, for the day, so on the 26th, I will then post my schedule for the entire November and a good chunk of December. For anyone wondering, Skelly, why are you just intermittently posting schedules like that? Because I can't really use my normal schedule at this time. Anyway, get thrashed. For a thorough explanation, because I'm kind of like doing college full time, and the fact that I also have several classes that are in person, I kind of have to sacrifice a lot of time that I could use for, streaming, to instead focus on my assignments. So, and this is mostly because a good chunk of the stuff I am doing for this semester, I can't exactly do while streaming, or else I'd really dox myself. And honestly, I like to avoid revealing stuff like my actual name. That would be kind of bad. That, and it's not really stuff technically related to my art major, but instead it's kind of like just a lot of my general requirements. And also some of the stuff I need in order to like graduate. Well, not really graduate, but transfer to the university I plan on going to. And hopefully by next year. I don't have many classes left. I have like 8 classes I have yet to do, and pretty much all of them are related to art. So for those, I could just do some of my assignments while live. But I do have to make sure that the file name is different. Because, you know, usually when it comes to like submitting assignments, you put your last name in it. Or like if you share a last name with a classmate, you put like the first in it. You put your first initial or your first and middle initial as well. And because of that, I know that the file name for my, you know, assignments can easily just reveal my last name. So because of that, I'm probably going to have like 2 versions of the same file. One where it's the version I work on stream, where the file name is like insert assignment name underscore or stream version, or like just like the letter H a bunch of times. Which I have quite a few classes I know I can take. I know I have to start picking out what classes I'm gonna take in November. And of course it kind of like depends on the availability of the courses. But I know that I want to take certain classes, and that includes classes that like involve digital art, because that is my major. And of course, in order to be a digital artist, you have to know how to draw digitally. That's like kind of the important thing. And of course, some of the stuff I need to draw is like stuff I have to do like traditionally, so I might have to do like some kind of hand cam. But of course I don't really have like a thing that I can use, like a proper thing for like elevating my, the paper to a certain degree so that my arm doesn't, so that my wrist doesn't hurt as much. I actually do have one, but it's pretty small. And some of the paper I've had to use for my art classes are really, really big. And a lot of it's like in the portfolio I bought, which is just hanging out in my closet, which needs to be fixed because I, like, about a decade ago, accidentally broke one of the shelves. So that's something that kind of has to happen. Anyway. So, like, around here, I believe. It's kind of like where it kind of goes. But yeah, I definitely need to like make some kind of reference. Like some kind of like 3D model for these horns. Because I'm going to be drawing characters with horns a bunch of times. And in order to kind of save my own sanity, I think I might need to, you know, learn how to use Blender and, you know, figure out some, like, ways to model the horns. Also, I think I made Osmia look very, very silly with those eyes. So I'm just gonna do this. But I think I'm going to give her kind of a similar hairstyle as to what she kind of has, but kind of give her a bit of a, kind of make it look a little more square. You know, kind of like this. And basically, I just wanted to show, like, for the East and West ones, I wanted to show, like, you know, different version, like, kind of like a younger version of Hydrangea and Osmi, because they're two of the few living Crystra that are currently left. Of course, they are both able to, like, they both are capable of kind of like reviving the population. But of course, a lot of like the culture is likely going to be lost, so they have to like make new traditions. And there's also a very specific ritual that happens. With, you know, Crystra. Which is kind of like how they, you know, create new Crystra. it involves a blood sacrifice. Let's just say that. Basically, the traditional way is like you make a cut on in like the crook of your elbow because it's the least painful. You then let the blood droop onto one of the many crystals on the island, then boom, you have a child. Sometimes several people, like more than one person, usually like 2 or 3 people, will do the blood letting part into some kind of container and mix the blood together and then pour it over a crystal. And then the Krystra who is born ends up having the traits of both of the parents. For those who just have one, if they are also a Krystra, it's basically like cloning. Yeah, the reproduction of the Krystra is completely asexual. No sex required, trademark. All you need is blood. Just a blood sacrifice. Yeah, this is kind of like meant to be a younger version of Osmi from... So like... Osmi is around like 10 years old. Like 9 to 10 years old. Which is like sometime before the Krystra island and the Rodinia archipelago got invaded. And, you know, Osmi had to run away. And I'd like to mention that Osmi actually did not want to run away from her friend and some stuff, but essentially, and this is kind of like spoiler territory, Osmi and Hydrangea were childhood friends. Their moms knew each other and spent a lot of time together. And because of that, they'd often bring their kids together with them so they could, you know, supervise the children together. And so that the kids could, you know, socialize with people who looked somewhat different than them. So, because of that, Osmanthus and Hydrangea ended up, you know, becoming very close friends, just like their parents. However, when the Hoopvolk, under the orders of Narcissa, invaded the Krystra island, Hydrangea was basically just like, you should run away, or like, you should run away as fast as you can, and away from here, and I'll hold them off so that you can run away, and hopefully not get caught. And Osmi was reluctant because, you know, she'd be abandoning her best friend. But Hydrangea basically promised to Osmi that if he lives, she's gonna do the best that she can to reunite with Osmi. And Hydrangea lives! Asterisk. The asterisk is because she ends up with a bunch of trauma. But eventually they reunite. Like, in their adult years. So, like, sometime, you know, before Patchouli, you know, joins the LPIA. And, yeah. And I'd like to mention that Osmi does not inform Patchouli that Hydrangea is, you know, one of the Cristra at first. Because one, she doesn't know how Patchouli feels about the Cristra. And two, because she wants to wait until Hydrangea felt comfortable revealing her identity as a Cristra to her. She doesn't realize that because she, you know, never met Patchouli's father, she only really knows her sister. But Hydrangea was, after being saved by Patchouli's father, ends up being raised by him. So, like, kind of like adopted as his, or like, kind of like a sister? Kind of like she essentially becomes like a daughter figure to Grima Chroma. And of course, Osmi does not know this because she never even met Grima. In fact, she doesn't really meet him until like way later in the story. And I can imagine, like, I think for like Hydrangea, she probably like, she makes the connection between like Patchouli and Grima pretty quickly. Like after like they kind of like meet each other. Like she was basically Grima told Hydrangea what his daughter looked like from the last time he remembers seeing her. Purple hair, pink horns, that kind of look like his. And she kind of like is very timid. And then she sees Patchouli. He, one day at, you know, the boba shop she works at, and is just like, wait a damn minute. And in fact, she kind of like orchestrates a kind of like a plot, like a little plan, in order, because for context, Hydrangea and Dahlia technically know each other. Because Dahlia would often like do little sneaky and, you know, go to her father's like hideout And that's how she kind of like knows Hydrangea. She still doesn't realize that she meets Hydrangea at that lab. For plot reasons. And also I think it's kind of funny. Okay, because I feel like the helmet would kind of like muffle Hydrangea's voice a bit. So she does not make the connection until Hydrangea reveals her that she is, you know, that person. And she's just like, why did I not realize this? Basically, she just has a big dum-dum moment. Because nobody is immune to the big dum-dum moment. Even I'm not immune to the big dum-dum moment. But anyway, as I'm starting soon, once the ads start, I'm gonna take a break. And then I'll be back. Also, yes, Osmi does not get the, like, orange hair tips until she becomes, like, an adult or, like, at least a teenager. But anyway, as I've started, so I am going to wait. Yeah. Also, probably like in like the next half hour maybe I'm gonna use the bathroom. Which I might end up starting my intermission early for? I don't know. Yeah. Minute and a half left. So I'm gonna correct a little bit of this color. And save it. Oh, I see the Void Boy. Yeah. Eventually, I'm gonna, like... Actually, I think I'm gonna go and use the bathroom. I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, I'm back. Took me some time in the bathroom. Let's just say that. So I think I'm going to make this look very stupid. Which I actually have this like stupid little drawing that I have when I was like making some expressions for some of the characters. This is based off the picture of a cat, by the way. It's the Colton 3 face. But I'm gonna move the tails up here. And I'm gonna do something really silly. Let's go to my sketch pen. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna do a chibi face. And the horns are just gonna fly off. This is good. This looks way too silly. Like, this looks way too silly. What of you? Your horns just fell off once you sneezed. Can't believe I'm drawing this shit. And yes, I am doing this as Hydrangea because even Hydrangea can have her city moment. And she's just like, what? I'm gonna kind of like draw these lines and stuff so that she doesn't look like she's bare. But what happens when a Krishna sheds their horns? To kind of explain, like, the older a Krishna gets, the less often they shed their horns. When a Krishna is, for example, in puberty, they will shed their horns pretty frequently. Like, usually about, like, once every few weeks or at, like, a monthly occurrence. As they start reaching the end of puberty, it starts happening every few months. A young adult Krystra like Osmi, they often shed their horns around once a year or like once or twice a year. And then the super old ones, they shed their horns every few years. So, like once every 1 or 2 years is kind of like the average for a fully grown Krystra, but for younger Krystra, like especially adolescents, they tend to shed their horns like every few weeks. And it can often happen as they're like doing a high energy activity, or they sneeze. And Krystra often gets startled by this because, you know, deer behavior. But also because sometimes you just don't expect your shed to happen when it does. There we go. So there is at least one very stupid illustration in this reference sheet. I'm gonna place it here to kind of like take advantage of this empty space that I left. And I am once again going to draw yet another stupid image. Which is... I'm going to make a bunch of like angular shapes and stuff. And I will try to find like an actual proper reference for crystals. I imagine this is kind of like a geode. And then you now have a child. Congratulations, you are now a parent. I guess I'm basing this off of that cursed fetus image. Because I can. And also because the freshly born babies kind of like look very, very cursed looking. They kind of look like bugs, in my opinion. Because this is certainly a child! And For anyone wondering, where's the tail? It's just a little nub. Yeah, I haven't actually drawn any cursed fetus babies before for now, so, y'all are in for a treat. They eventually get less cursed. Also, sometimes with adolescent Krystra, sometimes they often have like moments where only one horn sheds, and then the other sheds sometime later. Anyway. I'm gonna draw the line art for the toddler. As of now. And essentially, when Krystra, becomes toddlers, like once they leave the infant stage, so when they're like at least 2 years old, that is often when their horns start growing from like small lumps on the head into something like a little more defined. Depending on the type of Krystra, they can often have like 2 bumps at the stage. But the main defining feature for like any Krystra to determine what type of Krystra they are, it's usually the tail. So like, usually if it's just one hairy tail all throughout, it's a Western Krystra, which means that they are likely part of the Pendragon clan. And for East Krystra, they have, a tail that has like a scaled underbelly that is a lighter color than the fur on top. And they have longer hair. So that usually means they are in Eastern Krystra, which means they are likely a member of the Shuijing clan. Which basically just means crystal in Chinese. I am not joking. I literally named one of the clans of crystal dragons after the name for crystal in a different language. Because it's objectively funny. And also because I was a little lazy and it was like the best way I could like give Osmi an Asian surname. Because Osmi is meant to kind of like look like she's like specifically Chinese. But of course I gave her kind of like a little bit of darker skin. especially if you like compare her to this younger version of Hydrangea. They kind of like the big difference between them is the skin tone, but of course there are exceptions. I just thought this was like an easy way to like contrast the two characters. Here's the of Osmie and Hydrangea. With them, you know, having different skin tones and just generally different color schemes. Of course, I could always make a version of, you know, Osmie that kind of like looks, kind of give her like, replace the like bright orange with the, you know, a jade green. But maybe I'll do that for some of the other Crystra. So like, maybe the, you know, some of the ghost Crystra, whose spirits are still wandering around. But yeah, I'm probably gonna have to like make some kind of like head. Or something to like kind of show how the Crystra anatomy kind of changes. But anyway. I'll just put that as the text. But yeah. So this is kind of like what the toddler Crystras look like. I'm probably gonna have to make like a more proper chart. Like one where it's like, you know, front facing profile. And yes, I am probably going to incorporate a scene where Osmie loses her horns. So oh right, ads. Before I do that, I'm gonna do a small intermission. I'll be back. Anyway, I'm back. So, I think I might, like, just kind of make this, like, make the toddler versions of the characters and then, like, until they reach adulthood or something? But I don't know. But I'm going to sketch the adult version for the Krystra. And for this I shall be doing Hydrangea. But yeah. Let me just do that. But yeah. I'm gonna do a little bit of this as well. And I'm actually gonna go open up her other reference sheet, which is this. So y'all will be able to see, you know, younger versions of certain characters in the reference sheet. So I really liked how I gave Hydrangea like a pretty unique face, like especially compared to some of the other characters I've made. Cause a lot of my characters kind of like my facings kind of end up starting looking kind of the same. Because I usually don't really add like some sort of like major blemish. You know, like, or like any major markings. To them, you know? That and combined with her downturned eyes, I really feel like Hydrangea has kind of like become a bit of a unique character. But I don't know how much she's going to actually be liked by the general populace. Like by, you know, the audience for her design. If I do make merch for her, I might like do a lot of it where like her lower face is like obscured. like if she's, you know, wearing a helmet. To kind of like hide, kind of like add the illusion, sort of. So this is gonna be the adult version of Hydrangea. I'm gonna add a little bit of a more defined chin. Also, something I've been doing a little bit to like prepare for, you know, my designing of Fennel's family is that I've been playing Infinity Nikki again. And kind of like messing a bit with the design, with like what I have and stuff. Which obviously, since I took a 3-month break, I missed several seasons. You know, of content. Which means I have missed quite a bit of things. But luckily, I was there in time for the home update. So I've been starting since last month. I've been starting to play that game again. And I feel like it's probably a good way to like kind of get a feel for like certain characters. Like those who I have yet to design. Like, I know right now I have only just made, like, Blossom. I haven't really figured out what I'm gonna do for, like, certain other members of the family, like, you know, Shauna and Elisa. But yeah, I did make the canvas already. And I added a line for all of, you know, for, you know, the feet so that I can kind of like figure out their heights and stuff. Yeah. Other than that, I'm kind of like just doing what I do. But yeah. So we're halfway through the stream, which is we're on the 3rd hour. that are happening in 16 and a half minutes. But yeah. And something I like to mention with, you know, Hydrangea specifically is that out of all of the character designs I have, she is literally the most symmetrical. Like, I'm not joking, by the way. Her entire design, she can literally just be drawn from the front with the whole symmetry tool. And this is not a joke. You can just draw her with the symmetry tool and it would be completely accurate. And it's kind of like different for a bunch of the other characters because if I go to Dahlia, even she has a bunch of asymmetrical aspects to her design. Like her scar on her face, for example, and her bangs and the way I kind of have her ponytail going on. There's a lot of asymmetry. And then the next most symmetrical is probably Lily, in my opinion. Because, of course, the lab coat adds a bit of asymmetry, but she can mostly be drawn with a symmetrical ruler. And Linnea, of course, she's also very symmetrical, but the main part of her asymmetry is, you know, her outfits. And then there's Patchouli, which apparently I've been pronouncing wrong. It's actually Patchouli, but I'm just gonna refer to her as Patchouli. She, right now, is kind of like one of the more... She's still somewhat symmetrical, but... I still feel like especially around the face over here, she can be, like, very asymmetrical. And for anyone wondering why am I making the characters relatively symmetrical, it's mostly for the ease of certain things. And for Fennel, his face, out of like all the characters that have like facial markings, his face is the least symmetrical. Of course, most of his face is symmetrical, but his cleft lip and his scar over here make it very asymmetrical. But yeah. That's kind of like a little thing. And of course, the reason why Hydrangea has like such symmetrical scars is because it's a Transformers reference. I'm not joking, by the way. I am literally making a Transformers reference. With this goddamn character. Because it kind of like adds a bit of visual interest. Along with her downturned eyes. You know? Like, I feel like out of all the characters that I have for their faces, Hydracia's face is the most, like, visually compelling. Because she has various uncommon traits that you don't really see often in character designs. She has a widow's peak. She has downturned eyes, and she has a very big scar on both sides of her face that start at the corner of her mouth. And I feel like it kind of like provides a kind of like the scars give her a bit of a story. Like it kind of makes the viewer be like, how did she get those scars? And why did she get them? You know? But yeah. It's kind of like Hydrangea. In a nutshell. She's kind of like the most visually compelling character. Or like, especially with her face. Like, So, I'm actually not fully sure what to do now. So, I feel like these two drawings can be like the child Krystra. But after this, I'm not really sure what to do next. Because I'm gonna have like about an hour of stream time remaining. Maybe I can work on some of the... I think I might work on some of the concept art for like the outfits. You know. I think I'm gonna redo this because this looks more like Hydrangea than it does Osmi. I don't know why I gave her the Eastern Krystra horns. I'll probably redo the sketch. Like, maybe make versions of these two for like both. Like this can probably be like the child version, then above I can make the toddler version. Then I can move this up and place the adolescent below that, and then below that, they're adult forms. Go like, over here. me put this up there. Then I'll put the toddler part up here. And then I'm gonna do the line art for this. But yeah. I might need to move this one up a little bit because it looks a little wonky. There we go. That looks a little better. But yeah. I'm gonna do a bunch of this. Once I start, I'll stop working on this. And if I do the intermission after not being able to figure out, and once I reach intermission time, I'm gonna figure out, you know, what I can draw next. Like what I can do next. Because obviously I don't really feel like ending stream early. Also, hello Natabot Yippee, indeed, I am here. I am in the endless loop of drawing characters for a reference sheet. Because I am doing this to myself. And also because for when I start actually doing some of the fun art or for the series, I want to make sure I don't fuck it up. I want to make sure I, you know, have set aspects about these characters. Like their anatomy and stuff. I want to make sure that sort of stuff is, you know, applied, so I know how to draw the characters. And this is basically just me preparing for when I have to lock in and do the actual official art of officialness. aka the actual drawings that will be appearing in the story. So I'm almost done. And I'm gonna do my best to do this all before the ads hit. Then I'll like color, maybe do a little bit of rendering with the eyes. Anyway. That appears to be done. I'm gonna merge down the layers and turn off the sketch line. And the ads have conveniently started. Or at least they're gonna start soon. I'm gonna save where I am. Anyway, ads have started. But yeah, once I am close to like the end of stream, which is in like the next hour and a half, I'm gonna explain something that might end up happening, depending on what happens tomorrow. Which is, you know, kind of like based off of current events happening right now in my damn country. I don't want to worry too much about it though, so... yeah. I can hear my brother. He is being very much enraged by a thing. Anyway. Oh, I didn't realize my itty bitty calico was in my room. Girly. Yeah, well, you got me so much. You. Now you know you got your nipple box. Alright, I gave my itty bitty some love. She squeaked. Cause she's a squeaky girl. That's how she meows. She communicates. She squeaks. But yeah. Next week I'll kind of like go through my planned schedule for the rest of my semester. Because next week is the final week for 2 of my classes. I can't believe I'm like more than halfway done with my damn semester. But anyway, welcome back. I'm actually gonna go... Oh, I just realized I forgot the horns. God dang it. I forgot one of the most important parts of the Crystra. God dang it. Hold on. Un momento. Un momento. And let me just define that line a little more. Now let's head on and use color. Also, a small fun fact. I accidentally gave Hydrangea a color palette very similar to a certain flag. The pansexual flag. Because I, gave her like this, like... It's kind of more apparent with this. Like if I fully zoom it out, but you can kind of see like... Actually, hold on. Like you can see the kind of like pink, the blue, and the yellow. Those are very close to the colors of the pansexual flag. Like especially the blue. I think it's mostly the blue. That's, you know, making me realize it. But, yeah. I just think it's a little funny that I kind of like... Usually if I add like colors of a certain LGBT flag to a character, it's usually on purpose to kind of like imply a part of their character. However, in the case of Hydrangea, I didn't do it on purpose. So honestly, I feel like I can like kind of just roll with it. But yeah. Maybe I'll like make some kind of joke with her holding like a steel pan. And like one panel or like one like sprite in the game, like depending on where I put it, and just like make it into like a little bit of a bit, or just have her like eating bread, because in certain languages the word for bread is pan. I just feel like it would be like kind of a multicultural thing. kind of a multicultural joke. Or like have her with a pan that has bread inside of it. Maybe like bread rolls. Man, I'm craving dinner rolls. Those right now. But I have none. At least I don't think so. But yeah. I think that since I kind of did this unintentionally, I might as well just own it a little bit and just continue joking about it. And making it kind of like a bit of a visual gag. Like in the story. Like maybe some like official merch and stuff. So yeah. But yeah. That is the adult version of Hydrangea. Of course, there are going to be some older characters that are going to be shown, but a lot of them are ghosts, so kinda like eh. But I think I can make this into like the toddler version of you know, Hydrangea if I like kind of remake the design a little bit. Maybe like make the head a little bigger. Then I can start doing the rest of this for Osmi. But yeah. And there you go and get Osmi's other ref. Actually, let me also get her outfit sheet. And here we go. yeah. How you doing, Becky Moo? She's being silly. She's Magda. Magda is very silly. But yeah. Yeah. And of course, I forgot to do this. But once I, finish this, I don't know if I'm like gonna finish this before I, go into my intermission or not. But once this is done, I'm probably gonna like work on unrelated. But yeah. And I'm gonna like do a little bit of this. And of course, this is kind of like basically Osmi usually like dyes parts of her hair kind of like orange because of the way that she dresses and like what she kind of like usually wears. She wears a lot of like oranges and browns and sometimes she wears blue. And she has, of course, first dyed the tips of her hair blue at some point. In fact, usually like once every few years, she will change up the color. Or like whenever she kind of like reaches, has a bit of a milestone within her life. So like as an example, well, when she kind of like, when she first went to high school, she dyed her hair blue. Or at least part of her hair blue because the person who adopted her was, of course, willing to have her, like, she was willing to let her dye her hair, but she was just like, you are allowed to dye your hair or in a kind of crazy color, but please avoid doing like your entire hair at the first try, or she's just like, if you're gonna get your hair dyed, I'm taking you to a professional, and we're going to test to see if the bleach harms your hair or not, or like if it's compatible with your hair before we even try thinking about dyeing your hair. So Osmi agreed to those conditions, and now she's been kind of regularly dyeing her hair ever since. Like usually, like when she like freshly dyes her hair, it kind of like goes up to here, so like either like around like where her eyes are, and eventually like after a while, like once it kind of like reaches up to here, like when the dye starts going like to her shoulders, that's when she decides what color she wants to dye it again. And of course she has like, I feel like eventually she like completely dyes her hair, but usually she kind of like goes for like, when it comes to the colors she chooses what's like what like she feels looks good on her. And often, and back when she was younger, she had like several test streaks for like, you know, her hair to figure out what colors looked best on her. And of course her guardian was like pretty indulgent, but she made sure to set like limits, because she knows that, you know, if Osmi dyes her hair way too often, her hair's gonna fall out. So she kinda is just like, you are allowed to dye your hair, but I am going to teach you about how colored hair works and what happens if you dye it way too often. So that's why Osmi tends to wait a long time between dyeing her hair again. And it's pretty much because she has to bleach her hair pretty much every single time she has to dye it, or else it won't show up well. And because she knows about, you know, the dangers of bleaching your hair way too often, or like the dangers that bleach can have with like completely destroying your hair. She tries to be somewhat reserved about whenever she does dye her hair. That's why she eventually made the decision in herself to only dye some parts of her hair. Originally, it was just like the front parts of her hair that she dyed. And of course, her guardian made sure that the hair color, the hair dyeing was okay with the dress code. And, like informing like asking her counselor if it was okay for her to do that. The counselor was just like, it's not against the dress code, go ahead. And I feel like a lot of the dress... So, in Brewstrom, codes tend to be pretty lax. In, like, most places. Like, especially in, like, more rural places. Or, like, more, like, small town places. They can be a little more strict. But generally, the biggest thing about, like, if a student is wearing a short skirt, they have to wear some sort of leggings or tight. It's, under those, their skirt or shorts, in order to, like, make sure nothing embarrassing happens. Like, a lot of rules are set after, like, embarrassingness. A lot of the early rules were, like, established, like, after someone did something. Essentially, what some of the big rules are: you cannot wear something that is like kind of a whistle, a dog whistle to a terrorist movement. And you can't wear something extremely revealing just on its own. You have to wear something under it that contrasts even the slightest bit with your skin. And of course, students are allowed to dye their hair. Because, because I feel like, not allowing kids to, like, express themselves is, like, kind of stupid. But one of the big things about the dress code is that you aren't really allowed to wear something that, like, some accessories that are, like, really big, or, like, have a bunch of dangling parts. Or unless it's, like, for a costume, or, like, for a dance. And it's mostly just so someone doesn't accidentally get it stuck in something. And of course, when it comes to certain activities, those have different rules as well. Like, if you are in some kind of workshop, or like if you're in a lab, you're generally expected to follow the rules of the lab. Have, like, no open-toe shoes. You cannot wear a turtleneck. And you have to make sure you're wearing pants. Or if you are wearing something that is shorter than pants, you have to have some sort of leggings or tights under them, which can either be skin tone colored or just a funky color. It is encouraged to wear funky colors in order to make sure that they are, you know, it's mostly because, one, colors can be fun, and two, it's just a good way to make sure the kids are following the dress code. Of course, kids aren't really expected to, like, wear business attire, but they are expected to wear certain things that, you know, basically they aren't allowed to wear certain things that would be, like, that would, like, cause, like, some kind of, like, fashion mishap. But anyway, ads are starting in a little bit, so I am going to be back in a few minutes. gonna go put this here. But yeah. I used the bathroom. And now we're in the final hour of the stream. I'm probably gonna like make myself a snack after this. Maybe do some stuff. But yeah. So essentially I'm just doing the line art. And of course I tend to make my lines pretty thick. I like to use a bit of a combination of thick and thin lines. But yeah. But yeah. So by next week, well, for the next few weeks, I'm going to be like doing a lot of like, you know, classwork for my classes, which is going to include me, you know, kinda like working on all my presentations and other class assignments, and generally just working very hard so that I do not fail and possibly have to take those classes again. Because I think it would suck if I, you know, spent a lot of time, you know, working on all my finals, and then I realized that I had to take some of my classes again because I got some of the answers and assignments wrong. yeah. So, fully expect some form of, like, radio silence from me until I return next week. Because I, have all my classes that I have to do. And of course, there are various other things I have that, I have to do by, next week. But, yeah. I honestly kind of feel like it's gonna take me a lot of time. I believe I don't have PT this week, so I'm gonna have a lot of time in order to get all my assignments done. But yeah. Luckily, once November starts, I'm only gonna have 3 classes to do. In fact, I might do some of my assignments later tonight, so that I can, like, get a head start. At the very least, I'm going to try and finish my presentation for my, English class. Because I already finished the essay, I can turn that in. So, yeah. Yeah, once that's done, and I should hopefully be a little bit more free to do stuff that I kind of want to do. So I'll be able to stream a little more often. AKA once my, classwork's done, I'll be able to stream on Mondays. It's as well. But yeah. Once I am finished, of course, with a lot of the, assignments and stuff. Like, depending on how much I am able to get done, I might start streaming 3 times a week. Like, 3 or 4 times a week. But that kind of, like, depends on, what I am able to do in a given day. Or, like, a given week. this a bit as well. But yeah. But yeah. This is the progress that we have made so far. We have done 2 tails, a small sketch on how the shedding of the whole antlers and horns work, line art of a toddler Krystra, 2 tween Krystras, or just general child Krystras that are prepubescent, and then 2 adult Krystra, who are Osmi and Dreamjaw. But yeah, I still have some time, so I'm going to work on some other stuff for the thing here. I'm actually gonna start doing some of the liner for Lily's casual outfit here. But yeah. But yeah. I like just do a little bit of this. And this, and that. But yeah, I wanted to kind of like make it some progress on some of the character outfits that I have made so far, and that I'm kind of continuing to make. But yeah. So I'm gonna do this. got all this down. I think for this I'm gonna do this color. I think that looks pretty nice. Of course, I'm gonna put that down here as well. I might add a little bit of extra stuff after this, but yeah. Let me just add that. Of course, I am giving Lily a kind of cold shoulder because honestly, I just felt like it would look kind of nice. And also because it was part of the reference I had for it. But of course I'm gonna have to figure out like I'm gonna color some of this stuff. But yeah. But once I'm done with this, which I'm pretty close to finishing the outfit sheet for Lily, I'm probably gonna go on and do like someone else. Like I know I need to kind of like gather references for some of the Dahlia's outfits. Which is kind of important. Because right now, the only outfits I have for her are just these two. I want to try and at least give her some other outfits. Like maybe one where she has a cool jacket. I think I'm gonna actually hold on. I think I'm gonna do something like this. I was gonna give her like leg warmers, but I can probably like do that for some other design. Maybe like an alternate outfit. give Lily like a little more like feminine-y design. Or like something a little more girly hip-hop, you know? But yeah. And the tongue. Anyway. Now I'm gonna copy and paste the line art from the base. And I'm gonna start erasing what's not going to be visible. You know, from, you know, where it's being, you know, concealed by the clothing. Hold on. And delete. I can merge those down. Now I'm not fully sure how I can do like the skirt and stuff. I think I can like do this for the socks. Maybe. But, and I think I'll do this for the skirt. things are happening. Anyway, I believe that this can be considered done. But yeah. And the next thing I have to do for her is her traditional outfit. Which I am probably going to do the rest of Osmi's outfit. Not Osmi, Lily's outfit, because I just have the traditional left. I'll probably do that off stream. Like, probably like, whenever I have the time, I'll probably like make a, like, I think I have some references that I looked up on like Pinterest or something, but I might have forgotten them. So I'm probably going to like find the references I found and use them to make her traditional outfit, because I wanted her to have a Filipino look, even if, you know, one, the Philippines doesn't exist, and two, it will likely only show up like one time. I wanted to at least do some research into it like I did for Osmi's outfits. So the next thing that I feel like I can do is Fennel's worksheet. I know he looks a little strange at this angle, but yeah. I'm just gonna do it like this. I guess I am giving him a turtleneck because it was a reference. It's based off a reference I found. And this is kind of like what he wears when he's not at work. It's like his casual wear. But yeah. I'm gonna do this. And once I reach like close to the final hour, I'm gonna kind of like explain something a little bit. This is like kind of important-ish. I'm gonna use the curve tool for this. Oh, so that is the... There we go. But yeah. I'm probably just gonna do the line art right here. Then I'm like... Gonna do something... But yeah. Once I'm done with the art for today, I'm gonna recuperate, eat a little snack, and probably like do some stuff. Maybe I'll take a nap. Who knows? But yeah. This is kind of like... You know, something. So, I don't know when I'll ever draw fennel in this outfit. Oops. I dropped my stylus. Anyway, that's done. So before I, end stream and stuff, I'm going to explain something. So for those who don't know, the American government has been shut down for pretty much since the beginning of October. Very simply because they weren't able to, figure out a budget. My dad, as he works in the government, therefore cannot get paid. And he hasn't been able to get paid for the past 3 weeks. My family is currently financially stable enough that we have the funds in order to, support ourselves for a few months, but after that our, financial situation is kind of uncertain. And because of that, depending on how tomorrow goes, and if Congress is able to make a decision, and I will have to determine whether or not I have to start an emergency donathon. If the shutdown continues, I am going to start the donathon. So I made a sheet with some of the incentives and stuff. So I'm basing this both off of gift subs and Ko-Fi or Ko-fi donations. And for certain tiers, I have different things I will do. If you either gift 5 gift subs or $15 on Ko-fi, I will do a free sketch or doodle for you. Or for whoever gifted that amount. For 10 gift subs or $20, I'll write 50 words of the story for Patchoul's Revenge, the actual novel itself. For 15 gift subs or $25 on Ko-fi, I'll do a free line drawing. For 20 gift subs or $30, I'll do a free colored and line doodle. And then for 25 gift subs or $35 on Ko-fi, I'll write 100 words for my novel. And I'd like to mention that if this does happen, it's not going to end until after the government ends the shutdown. So that will be for however long it is. And during this time, during the time that will happen, depending on if the shutdown is still happening, I will likely open up commissions on VGen as well, and kind of dock off 10 or 15% of the price for all of my commissions, so that I can hopefully get money and see if I can send some of that money to my parents into accounts so that they can, use it. But yeah, I might do some stretch goals for it as well, as further incentives. But honestly, I just want to try and be financially stable for as long as I can. And honestly, I know it's usually a bad idea for like VTubers or streamers of any kind that don't deal with political stuff to talk about political stuff, but this kind of is affecting my family's financial situation. So I feel like I need to talk about it because it's going to affect some of my, streaming in the future. Like, especially if it goes until, if the shutdown happens, like, if it continues to, like, November, I'm definitely gonna have to, like, work myself a little bit to the bone in order to, like, try my best to, avoid my family experiencing financial ruin because, I'd like to be able to keep all my cats healthy and stuff. But yeah. That is the explanation as to why stuff is a little tense right now with me. Of course, I mentioned this in my Discord server as well. The shutdown and everything. Me being unsure about me being able to do certain things in the future. But hopefully the shutdown is going to end tomorrow so that I don't have to, like, force myself to do something that I don't want to do so soon. In my streaming career. Like, something that I don't want to do at this current time. In my streaming career. But yeah. So depending on how everything goes tomorrow, that's going to determine whether or not I start my emergency donathon. Because if it ends, it's going to be very, very great for me. But if it doesn't, then I'm gonna have to do stuff to prevent my family from, like, being too down in the gutter. Because honestly, I'd like to be able to afford to do stuff that's fun. But yeah, I'm gonna end stream in about 9 or so minutes. And, once that's over, I'll end stream, do all my nightly and afternoon stuff, and just hope that tomorrow goes well. Anyway. The casual outfit for Fennel is done. Let's move this over. But yeah. Yeah. We have made pretty good progress today. And I was able to make progress on something I was working on. The next live stream is going to be me joining Fennel's family. At least kind of like feeling out their design. But next stream is probably going to be Tales of Berseria, but I'm going to check how it kind of like goes off stream. See if my PC will not implode. Put on itself again. But yeah. I think I'm gonna end stream now. I'll be here next week on the week of Halloween. I don't know if I'll be able to stream on Halloween this year, because I know I'm not going to that convention I've been going to for the past few years because of, scheduling issues and the fact that, it happens while some of my classes are ending, and not only that, I'd have a lab in the middle. So yeah. I'm gonna do the best I can in order to finish as many of my assignments as possible between, now and next stream, so that I don't have much to worry about during my 10th week of my semester. But yeah. So next week is going to be Tales of Berseria. I'm going to try and finish some of the side quests that I've been meaning to do off stream. Or at least try and save and restore some of the progress I made in the game to the best of my ability. But yeah, I'm gonna end stream now, or like go to the ending screen, and yeah, I'll be seeing y'all next week on Sunday. Bye, y'all!